designers, we didn't necessarily have the chance to basically be able to tell our story. Social media offered us that platform, to show the talent in the region, and there is talent in the region.
All the customers and audience that they really appreciate this work, like a digital works, or for example, they wanted to try some of your designs, they can do it online. Yeah. They can do it in a virtual way, in a virtual environment as well.
Staying true to yourself when times are tough and when there's doubts. I think that's really being authentic.
Fashion is so powerful. Like, I don't see it as just clothing to adorn our bodies. But today, with the technology, with the iTech, with social media platforms, we're much luckier to actually have this kind of platforms to tell our stories.
All the creators, in a sense, were keeping up with the content, but also at the same time, it also shows that there are a lot of opportunities there that come along with it. So it just forces innovation like nonstop. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gems of Arabia. The purpose of this podcast is to kind of bring light to creatives who are all over the world, who are creating a movement of, dare I say the word, authenticity. But it's also about really bridging two worlds. I'm sure you're all aware that we are honored to be part of this collaboration with Harrods, where we are reaching out to the creative community in Saudi Arabia and the GCC in general, and to create a dialogue, to create a conversation where we can really go deeper and start visualizing how we can create this bridge between the creative community. From Harrods, you can see the city of London today. I would like to welcome my esteemed guests. Thank you all for coming. Especially thank you, Halaa, for coming all the way from Saudi Arabia. Really appreciate it. So starting with Halaa Gharbawi. Halaa is one of the most established Saudi designers. Really has kind of proven herself to think outside of the box. She started the first NFT collection. So very progressive. And you know, we love this kind of new movement. In fact, our discussion today is about how can linking the progressive with the generational bridges that we are creating, how we want to take things into the future, but at the same time also we're going back in history, inspired by 70s, 80s. I remember when we were on a Zoom call during the hard times, and I was completely blown away by the fact that you were creating one collection. So we thought of creating the neon collection, right? Yes. So one whole collection that was created with how many designers?
I think five or four.
So 5 different designers and each designer was from a different country.
Exactly.
So this kind of narrative is just incredible, and I commend you for it. We'll get back to it soon. Sultan Aldarmaki, another of our esteemed guests, is a dear friend who I've known for many years and who I've admired his work. Incredible shoe designer initially when we started to get to know you. Really contemporary, really strong, very sleek. And it completely threw me off, you know. And I remember like the fact that you were placed at Level Shoes. It created a whole new narrative of having local brands and shoe accessory brands, which was very unusual, to be placed at a major retailer. So you kind of changed that narrative. Then you went to the VMA, and now I'm going to call you a philosopher.
He's really pushing
consultant, designer, and philosopher. Your content is just, I mean, I'm telling you, it is making a lot of great noise, and you're on the pulse of what's cool, like locally and historically. And I can't think also of another additional compliment to this conversation that we're having, is that it's about going back, and it's also about going into the future and bridging. So the whole concept with Harrods that we're creating with this partnership, which is I'm very honored to be part of, it is to create this generational bridge. We talk about West meets East, but it's also about generations, and each generation behaves differently. Thank you for being here. Moving on to Rawan Kattoa. Rawan Kattoa is the stylist of the stars. Very in tune with what's happening in fashion. We worked on various projects together. She also dresses a lot of my favorite actresses. One of them is Fatima Al-Banawi, who is also a gem that we've had the pleasure to interview, and many other great people who are in the industry. Thank you for being here. I got to meet Yousef Akbar when we were doing content for different publications. Through my agency, we do content, we facilitate content and curate personalities, stylists and designers. And it struck a chord with me that also fashion-wise, nothing could represent the importance of being relevant and contemporary like we did, like what the shoot that you did. We had this Saudi model. It wasn't a regular Al-Ula shoot. But it resonated so much. It was actually for Condé Nast magazine that it made it to the cover. And the beauty of this image, which we will show you shortly, is that you could see something very contemporary and something very traditional at the same time. And I think that this is the new narrative for Saudi Arabia. It's we need to stop breaking the cliches of things being in a certain way. They don't have to be in one way. There's also the process of contemporary. You're also a winner of the fashion prize. So I mean, we're very proud of you. So thank you for being part of this discussion.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here amongst so many incredible people in their field. So I'm very honored. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Starting with Halaa. So the first NFT collection. Tell us how did this all come about, or what was the process, and how and why did you start the first NFT collection?
Okay, during my studied and master degrees in fashion management, I just graduated in 2021 from Rome Business School in Rome in Italy. We had like a lot of topics talking about technology, how the new generation will be in the future in fashion industry in general. So one of these topics talking about NFTs, and I was really curious to know more. Once that I really love to do some sketches like with flat Illustrator program, and I'm really good on that. So I say, okay, I just wanted to figure out more what is NFTs, what is talking about, why NFTs now, why it's really important for the future, especially with the new generation. So I just did my job, part of job, like just to research about it. I just figure out that it's everything in digital, it will be online, especially with the new generation in the future. Actually, it's like unique, non-refundable tokens. And these, it will be provide some proof of the ownership, that no one can take it or just sell it after you. You are the creator, you are the designer of this kind of stuff. It could be, for example, in different shapes, it could be in different forms. And all the customers and audience that they really appreciate this work, like a digital works, or for example, they wanted to try some of your designs, they can do it online.
Yeah.
They can do it in a virtual way, in a virtual environment as well.
Even jewelry brands like Tiffany's,
Yeah, exactly.
are actually taking major steps and taking it much more seriously. Yeah.
Exactly. And especially that happened after the pandemic. Like they just figure out more of one high brand. They just figure out all the new generations. They're really curious about digital gaming, like for example, Fortnite, this kind of stuff. So they say, okay, we can just go and move on, just to create something that the new generation will take in seriously and can just be like one of the most important things in fashion industry. So I just did it with the Claude 3D program. It takes a lot of time just to create one design. Exactly, the process of one design. And the benefits, we cannot see it now. We can see it in the future because everything we are doing now, it's like for the future, not for now. So this is the experience that I had in NFTs. I just did it with the new collection.
I mean, it's all about innovation. Speaking of innovation, Yousef, I see that you are also kind of using very modern techniques in design and cutting and materials. And would you like to elaborate more on how you've managed to kind of create this new ethos?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be innovative, and I know this is a very obvious sentence, but even if you go back to the times of, let's say, Christian Dior and Balenciaga in the 40s and the 50s, for us, we look at them as traditional and classic, but at the time they were groundbreaking. They were doing things that no one has done. They were shocking people, and they were innovating. And innovation becomes tradition eventually, you know?
Yeah.
And I think trying to push that with what we have today is super important. I mean, it's like I said, it's important to me. And the program that Halaa was talking about, Claude 3D, We use it a lot. There's a lot of uses for this software. We have not done our NFT collection yet, but this program actually is allowing us to cut, drape, fit all the garments on a digital avatar or a mannequin or a person. And
definitely saves a lot of cost and a lot of energy.
A lot,
as well.
also the
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
You can just find also the mistakes.
Yes.
Saves costs and saves time, and most importantly, it is better for the environment in terms of way less paper, way less fabric, way less everything. And as you all can see now, the environmental crisis, all the droughts, all the heat waves, the extreme weather, I think it's not an option anymore to not be sustainable. So we have to find every way possible to just do things in the best way possible. And I believe utilizing technology is probably the most important thing, because technology is what defines us as a generation now. Like, this is what we've got, you know, all this software or the coding or the engineering, or, you know, so why not use it to our advantage? And the process has been going great. I love it. I absolutely get a kick out of you know, using all the tools I can.
It's make your life easier.
In some ways, yes. And in a lot of ways, it's frustrating. Don't get me wrong. There are things that I cannot do on software. So I have to drape it my hand. So I still get that element of using my hands, but for a massive portion of what we do, trying to do it digitally has been an incredible experience. Yeah. And you're able to save things, send things through to factories. You know, it just makes the whole process so much easier.
Yeah.
Maybe looking at it from another perspective is that you want to take things really forward, but at the same time, to keep it balanced and to keep it a bit more nostalgic, you look into the past and combine the past with the future. Am I correct? Is this a movement that the younger generation is using more and more? Yeah? Tell me, what do you think about this, Sultan?
I think, I mean, I love the mix of both technologies. I remember, like, when I was a footwear designer, like, we heavily used technology to mock up designs, to, you know, draw our patterns, do all of that stuff. I think it's important to have the balance of both.
Yeah.
I think as, you know, a couture designer or ready-to-wear designer, the draping part of it is important to do things with hand. There's something that is very different in that process. There's something very rich in that process. And I do hope to a certain extent that remains, but I also think that it would be nice to kind of have that balance between both worlds as opposed to a black and white situation.
Exactly.
I don't know if Yousef, you agree with me with that, as you
It's
know,
100%.
your work is incredible.
Like I said, there's a lot of things that I couldn't do on the software. Not because I can't, it's not doable, because it's better to be done by hand, because sometimes that human touch
It's
Exactly.
different, yeah.
I mean, variety is the spice of life, right? So the more
Absolutely.
options you have, the better off you can
Absolutely.
be, and the more you can have
Yeah.
a different innovative collection.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very important, like having the human touch, but also having, you know, the technology. If the technology is available, that would save you time and energy and money. Fantastic, but I think the human touch is important, because literally, like, I mean, I remember me doing my pieces. It was me putting a little bit of my soul, my energy into it,
Yeah.
and my identity into it as well. And I'm sure, like, as ready-to-wear designers, you guys
Yeah.
do exactly the same when it comes to draping. You're putting a
Yeah.
little bit of your story, who you are. Like, you know, a draping is an art, and each designer
Also during
has
the fittings, it will
yeah,
be
during the
totally
fittings
different.
as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the variety is fantastic. I totally agree.
I think that just the thought that you can do things in the workshop while sitting on your computer is to me is a dream. I'm like, I need to go back to designing. You know, for me it's like going to a sweaty workshop and play with fabrics.
For me, it's like a magic. You know, like from something, it's something.
The first time fitting on a digital mannequin
Yeah.
blew my mind away.
A fashion show.
So entire collections can be made digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The crazy part is so accurate. When they replicate the drape, digitally, when you do it in real life, of course, with a similar fabric, you get to choose all the kinds of fabrics and how they drape like digitally. But then when you replicate that, it is so accurate. It's crazy how they've developed these things.
I just remember one thing during doing the process of NFTs, once that we finish, or just to see the results. I say, okay, I just wanted to create one design and just comparing with the NFTs how it looks like in the computer. And then I just rent a model just for do the fitting for one day. And she came and wear the design. And then I just asked her, please, can you just give me a walk? Once that she started to walk, exactly the same mistake on her hand in the sleeve, exactly on the NFTs.
So it's pretty precise.
It's amazing.
Amazing. I was, wow. Like, the mistakes also shown, like, once that you just start to do the patterns.
So I don't have any more excuses not to get back into fashion. I have no excuses whatsoever.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
No, I'm
You
moving.
almost run a fashion brand from your bedroom if you want.
Literally, yes. Literally. But moving on to Rawan. Rawan, how are you doing?
I'm great.
You great?
Very among the great talents, and I realized that all of us, like from the region but living abroad, so somehow we have a similar journey, I would say. And speaking of technology,
That's very true, actually. Very true.
Especially I think our direction, of course, like fashion is so powerful. Like I don't see it as just clothing to adorn our bodies.
I agree.
Or a complex of ideas, concepts, and it was also since history inspired by different movements. But today, with the technology, with the iTech, with social media platforms, we're much luckier to actually have this kind of platforms to tell our stories through these kind of platforms. So for example, in styling or art direction, and specifically for my work, because I'm more into consultancy, direction, styling, so it's not designing. And
I noticed you also have a lot of like retro influences in your styling. I mean, a very kind of old Hollywood movie star. Obviously, Fatma Banawi represents that Hollywood movie star-esque Saudi personality. And you've dressed her on various occasions, and I noticed that there's always a bit of combining the past with the future. Am I correct? Yeah.
Exactly. So because I feel culture is part of who we are. It's our heritage, our art, and these kind of technology and platforms, it's actually connecting us easily to the world to show our stories, to show our roots, to actually share our authenticity. And this is like a great we're so lucky to have this opportunity today.
Thank you, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to also have your input on what is style in Saudi exactly? Like, how would you say the style movement has evolved? In what sense? Like, are people becoming more minimal? Are people becoming liking to bling it up as they used to in the past, or is it a whole new different ethos now?
I see, talking about Saudi is a big country, and what is so unique about it is that we have a very diversified culture. If you go to Jeddah, people dress a different way than in Riyadh, than Taif, than Abha. So it's very unique that in each city you can see how people are inspired by the culture and by their art and their stories and history. And of course, we're still very, connected to be modest and represent our culture in a modest way. But at the same time, you can see that is modern, fun, creative, but yet very connected to the heritage and very connected to the past.
Basically, I noticed even like my nephew who's 18, likes the brands, but also likes to mix it up with local brands. In the 90s, we were like very much obsessed with the brands. There was no room so it's great to see that the younger generation have these values of combining local with international.
This is what actually I always focus on. If you do like my styling and my directions, either with like magazines, fashion media, or in red carpets, or with individuals, or my personal style. So I always, of course, like to be, up to date, trendy, and everything. But at the same time, I decided when I established this business in styling and my platform in social media to keep it always authentic, to always highlight local brands, regional talents, regional creatives, and also highlight, our culture and our roots, because now it is the opportunity for us to share our stories. And through styling, it's not just, just clothing and it's nice and beautiful, but it has a lot of ideas behind it. And when we work together and, for example, the Saudi Cup, so we had to definitely work with 100 brands, but at the same time to keep it authentic and to keep it more related to the culture with our heritage, with our modest style. So it's very interesting actually to always, yes, be modernized, fun, creative, but always be authentic to yourself and to your roots in art and culture.
I think, Rawan, I agree with you. You've made a couple of very good points. I think social media, like I'm a different generation than the beautiful designers I'm sitting with right now. It was like on the sort of cusp of social media. Social media just came along, and as Middle Eastern designers, we didn't necessarily have the chance to basically be able to tell our story. Social media offered us that platform, to show the talent in the region, and there is talent in the region, but also gave us the opportunity to be able to tell our story, but authentically, and take full ownership of our story and us as designers, which was extremely important. I know a lot of people have different opinions about social media, but for me as a designer, it was very important because now I control the narrative. I'm going to talk about who I am as a designer. I'm going to be very authentic to it, and I'm going to share about the region. But to your point as well, we're the 90s, 80s kids, so I'm the 80s kid. So basically, like to us, the big brands were
different dynamic.
It was a very different dynamic.
Yes.
The 80s were like, oh my God, I want to wear the big brands, the big houses, because that's what it is. That to be cool.
Yeah.
And we were kind of brought up in a time where you have to look at, we were in a very sort of Middle Eastern household, but then you have the pop culture happening, and you see the coolness and everything happening, and you want to be related to that culture as well.
There wasn't even hope for the ecosystem to be built.
No, there wasn't.
It was completely like we're just doing something really outlandish, and that was it.
Absolutely, you know what I mean? So like, there was a little bit of like, who are we exactly, and what are we exactly? Are we like the cool 80s kids and 90s, like want to be more westernized, or do we want to be Middle Eastern? I mean, looking now...
And we had to make a choice, actually.
And we had to make a choice.
Now we don't have to.
And there wasn't right or wrong. We just had to make a choice. What worked with us. But looking at, like, young designers right now, or stylists like you, or, people in the creative industry, it really makes me so proud to see the creative people in the industry in the Middle East combining both, combining more of like a touch base on like who we are from like a cultural perspective, because it's rich and it's beautiful and we have a lot to say with our culture and heritage, but also like
strong sense of identity.
We have a very authentic and strong sense of identity, but we are also a new generation that is different. We're also westernized and exposed to different cultures, so it's nice to see like the mix. And I think Saudi specifically does it in a very beautiful way, where like you as you said, you're Saudi. A lot of people in the West, when you say it's Saudi, it's a big country and it is rich with different sort of tribes and culture and tradition. But to see that sort of exhibited right now, even for me, and I'm from the region, I look at stuff and I was like, I didn't even know that was in Saudi, and that's absolutely stunning. It's really, really beautiful. So to your point, you're absolutely, social media like gave us that point, like that
especially when it's modernized, where it doesn't just come in a certain way. It's like
1,000%. Like I think of some designers from the Middle East who started doing kaftans probably towards the 2000, and I think they try to westernize it as much as possible, and that's okay because they wanted to reach into, like, they want to sort of get into the Western market. But to see like designers right now taking like sort of full control of like the culture and really like authentically presenting what a kaftan looks for us and different parts. This is what a kaftan. It's actually beautiful. It's rich. It has a lot to say about our culture. And it's nice to see people, like young creative people, say like, this is who we are, and that's what we're going to do right now.
Absolutely. Halaa, so as a Saudi who is working outside of Saudi Arabia, and also now considering going back and showing some more roots in Saudi Arabia. We have the 100 Brands exhibition that happened when it first started, which was incredible. And we had New York.
Yeah.
And apparently now there's also something else happening, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Milan, we have just participated in a white showroom in Milan, happening during the Milan Fashion Week.
100 Brands will be there.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
Most.
Most
Okay.
of them?
Because it's a wholesaling opportunity, so it's
yeah,
B2B.
Yeah.
Only brands who have that capability or it fits part of their strategy to be doing wholesale are going to participate in it. Of course, there are some brands like Thobe brands and maybe Bridal cannot, that doesn't really work, but some are adapting, some are like changing direction, maybe doing dedicated collections for that while keeping their business, but most brands will be participating in the showroom. And I think it's a good opportunity because selling in Saudi Arabia is not like selling
International.
everywhere else.
True.
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
know?
Why is that?
One major reason, like we've been talking before, is the culture. It's completely different. The way people dress is completely, like, absolutely different. In the UK, in America, in China, in Australia, in South Africa, in Japan, everywhere else is different, which is also crazy, you know? So selling outside of Saudi is so complex and different, and some brands never had that experience, and the fact that they're providing this experience for a lot of these brands is really great because you will learn so many lessons and you can evolve and not take the risk investing tens of thousands of dollars to learn a very big lesson. So it kind of shortens the learning curve for a lot of these designers, and it's such a great opportunity and initiative from the Ministry of Culture, and I have to say, you know, big thank you to them for what they're doing and all the
As a
support for the
fashion
industry, because we need that. We need it.
I remember, being a designer, I'm not even going to say how many years ago, but when I started, we'll keep it to you.
Yeah, we'll keep it to ourselves. Don't go there.
But having this ecosystem would have been amazing, really, really is, it encourages you, gives you more drive, and just seeing how it just came full circle, and you have very progressive designers, you have very contemporary designers as well, and just seeing this melange of creativity in Saudi.
Exactly.
I didn't know we had 100 such amazing, fantastic.
Yes.
There's like certain names that we know about, but alhamdulillah, we know all of them.
Yeah, me too. Like, I just was surprised.
And
that
there's
with
more. There's more.
You scratch
more
the surface.
than 100.
Really, yeah. So, and Rawan, tell me, like, what kind of steps you take when you make sure that you want to support local designers? I know you approach all the 100 brands, but is there a specific process that you take to ensure that you product place something that is from our heritage? How can you ensure you can do that? Because sometimes I always wonder how stylists do that. Sometimes the client wants something specific.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, when I wanted to start this whole styling and being in this industry, I used to work in corporate for 10 years. Then I shifted from corporate to fashion in 2016, actually, where still the fashion industry in Saudi was a bit, at that time, we didn't have the Fashion Commission, we didn't have, the vision of 2030, but today, that gave me a huge push to actually, shift and be there, create, grow, pushing our limits, as Yousef mentioned, and we're very thankful for that. We're very proud because we can see that the future is even brighter, is even promising. So these elements, when you have a support system in the country that pushing you want to give back to the country. You want to really give back from your heart. So yes, being here, and sometimes, most of the year, I spend it like half of the year in Saudi, half of it in Switzerland, but I'm still very connected to everything that's happening in Saudi. In terms of major events, like I keep myself up to date of what's happening in terms of the Saudi Cup, Red Sea Film Festival, the calendar, what's going on, what are the innovation, what are the initiatives, and keeping myself always up to date with the regional and local brands in Emirates, in Egypt, in Lebanon, and stay, like as a stylist, I work back office with these brands.
Yeah.
And in a day-to-day work, in a day-to-day operational, I would say, we're staying connected to actually, point or select the best talents, the best designs, the best styling, and having these connections and networking every now and then. And then whenever there's an opportunity, I have an idea already with the Middle East market and with the brand and with the designs. So it's always have to be, of course, very selectively. Like we have Halaa, we have all the talents here are some of them from 100 brands, but at the same times, before that, I've been always initiating these kind of networking and connection and staying, up to date with these brands, what's happening in the market, what's happening here in Europe as well, and combining modern, cultural, from the West, from the East, because, the more you're diversified in your styling, the more it's creative. And I think this is my identity. I decided to have a niche and a vision actually to keep this, authenticity and shed the light on local brands, but at the same time combining international aspect and of course modern aspect to the style. But it's all about connection, keeping yourself up to date, keeping yourself up to date in terms of trends, what's happening, connecting with magazines, fashion media, platforms, social media, content creation. So all of these, things, being there, being active, and working actually in this field, it is what makes me always, up to date with fresh designers, fresh talents, fresh designs all over the Middle East.
How can we even differentiate ourselves if we don't have our identity ingrained in what we create? We will be just like any other brand that's from the West, for example. And I think that this is the key, really. It's doing it in a way that is progressive, but still very much part of our culture. In everything, and it's not just fashion. It's writing, it's philosophy, it's content.
Absolutely.
So I just want to know, how do you come up with your content, Sultan? Really, he is a philosopher. You are a full-fledged philosopher.
I don't know what he's talking about.
I get a daily dose of Sultan.
Listen, I've made a commitment, I think 2018, when I decided to basically move away from my business, is to be my authentic self and be who I am and be very proud of it. And I feel like I grew up in a family where I always had to kind of know where the red tapes are. And 2018 was like, you know what? I don't see any red tapes around me. So let's talk about everything and anything. And I feel like part of my content is celebrating our culture, but culture, like certain images that provoke some emotions from an era that I lived in, 80s and 90s, which is, for me, was a transitional. It was, the UAE was going from a desert to like an urban city. So I saw the best of both worlds. I guess the memes is because why not? Hey, we need to laugh after COVID.
Absolutely.
Like, it's absolutely
you
important.
definitely saved us.
It's absolutely
you saved us during COVID. Yes.
So I don't know, like I just felt that it's not calculated. It's not something that I plan in advance for it. Sometimes I'd see something and I'd be like, oh, this is hilarious. Like that, I'm sure people will actually really enjoy it. But it's also like a safe space for a lot of people. Like I just wanted to make sure that my social media is a safe space for people to be able to get in contact with me, and we can have open conversations about everything and anything, and everything stays with me. Like, I've had some quite fascinating conversations over the phone with some of the people that follow me on Instagram and people that I follow on Instagram as well. And to me, life is an evolving thing. We learn every single day, and you learn from different people every single day. Mm-hmm. But also connecting with some designers from the region, because I live here, so I am disconnected a little bit from the region. But the social media allowed me to be connected to, the likes of Yousef and Halaa and different people, like Shogul Fardan from Abu Dhabi, for example, who's like a graduate from Parsons School, and she does beautiful kaftans, but like very sort of contemporary, but yet like they are very like Khaliji, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the soul is still there. That's why I'm a big fan of social media. Just Did I say it enough?
We're happy to have you on social media. He mentioned, Yousef, about being safe and not having to be safe anymore. Are we maybe directed to both designers? Are we in a position now where we can start thinking outside of the box, or are there's still those anchor pieces that we have to make in order for the brand to succeed? You know how there's always these, you call them cash cows, right? The anchor pieces that you have to keep designing. Do you feel like now people are a bit more innovative in their thought process when it comes to selecting pieces, or it's still we still have a way to go?
I'm okay. First of all, I'm going to speak about myself, and the whole reason I have got into the fashion industry, because for me it's a way of self-expression. It's definitely not for money, because it's not the most straightforward way to get a lot of money quickly. It's you can't go in it. You'll be so disappointed.
Yes.
It's true, opposite way.
If there's no passion there, then it's like you're in the wrong business.
But it's Yousef. It's
absolutely not. And you know what's crazy? A lot of people think it's that way.
Yeah, but Yousef, it's also like, people see the glossy magazines and they say that this is the life of the fashion industry. Yeah. They haven't seen it behind the doors. Like it's a lot of work. It's a process. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
It is a lot of work. I tell you something. I could be in 2020 lockdown and it would make no difference, because I'm just working 24 hours a day, honestly.
Oh, I believe you, yeah.
But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I do this as a form of self-expression. So being able to design those pieces that are maybe a little more crazier pieces is so important for me. I need to express myself, and if I'm able to express myself, I will create something that is unique to me. And I believe if I am staying true to myself, and if I am unique, people will see that, and that will definitely differentiate me from anyone else.
This is a creative industry.
If you look at my previous collections, for example, there's one particular collection, I tried to do everything. Tops, casual, dressy, pants, suits, small dresses, short dresses, long dresses. I tried to do everything, thinking that I'll be able to sell all these things. But in the end of the day, people came to me for the pieces that are really unique to me and unlike anyone else. They may be a bit crazy, a bit like not so wearable, but there is a market for that, and people will look for that. And I realized there's no point for me making a cotton dress or a t-shirt, because there are a lot of people who make it 100,000 times better than I am, and they're known for it. So why shouldn't I just focus on what makes me unique and allows me to be creative? So of course, I do the pieces that are a bit out there, and I adapt the same feel and same emotion of these pieces to maybe a wearable version, but not completely where it loses the identity. So I think you can't do this without this, because being like designing these pieces that are a bit more out there, this really makes you, and you can't be more unique than being yourself.
One of the things that I always talk when some of the young designers from the Middle East reach out to me about being the business of fashion itself and the way they design, I always remind them that a runway is very different than market, and they're two separate things. So yes, you can have your full sense of expression,
and the social media posts,
and the social media as well. Exactly. So in the runway, have your full identity. Do express yourself the way you want, because some of these runway pieces are probably not sellable, and if they're sellable, they'll come with a very high price tag. But then in market, that's your watered down version of your runway that is more accessible to a completely different demographic. So they're two separate, from my experience in the industry, that separation is very important.
I just want to mention something, I don't want to cut you off. What sells my more commercial pieces are those crazy pieces.
Because it's an image identity that you are creating. So people go for that dream that you are selling to them. And this is what I'm trying to get to. Basically, I think that there definitely is this new narrative where as much as you surprise, titillate them, and show them that you're out of the box, the more they're going to follow you, the more going to see your collection, you know? So I feel like,
of course,
safety is no longer...
No, absolutely not. I think
who
like
studied fashion, they
Yes.
know already that it's ABC. Or
Exactly.
that you do the designs. You have to do crazy or creative designs and like commercial designs. You have to combine both, like in this industry.
It's
You
the
cannot
dream that
just
you are
go
selling
in
them.
one-
Exactly, absolutely,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that social media has just completely changed everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And now there's TikTok, so it's a whole other story. You know, so it's really evolving, and God help, all the creators in a sense were keeping up with the content, but also at the same time it also shows that there are a lot of opportunities there that come along with it. So it just forces innovation like nonstop, you know.
Sure.
Or do you disagree, Rawan?
I fully agree, especially today. Even if you look into the social media platforms, you would find a lot of talents or creatives that will only just be there to follow what I want. But always what I see it more sustainable is, like you just mentioned, is being more true to yourself and expressing yourself the way you are, not just following others, what they're doing and what they're creating. It's just always expressing yourself, just be yourself. And then even if it's not that commercial, and as Yousef mentioned, maybe it's less money, but at least is what keep us passionate about what we're doing. Because if you just run for the income, of course financial aspect is very important, and it's when you think about it as a business, you have to have a strategy for the financial aspect. But at the same time, there is a very tiny line between forgetting your real self and just your own values or your own identity just to get the money. And I see it in everything, in designing and content creation and styling. It's part of everything, just to express who you are, the real you.
Yeah, I mean,
following trend.
At the end of the day, it's a balance.
Yeah,
it's a balance.
exactly.
And
I think it's
if
a
you look
balance.
at the most successful brands, you will find that they're able to
have business acumen.
The commercial.
Yes.
And the
which is also important.
Because I think bottom line, at the end of the day, it is a business, and you do want to make money out of it. And I think having a balance is extremely important. I will say, never compromise who you are. Be authentic to who you are. Tell your story, but also make sure you find that balance where you can also have commercial pieces that you can make money off, and sustain that vision of yours as well. Because when you run out of money, you can't sustain that vision anymore.
So
it's actually in every area of business.
Absolutely.
It's not just I know we're talking about design, but also with business deals that we do with buyers. With so many times we would enter into a deal where we know we're not going to make money. But it's a massive branding and marketing exercise, and getting that client will get me other clients where I can make the money. So it's all about the balance. It's not just always trying to have everything just perfect. Everything has a purpose. A design has a purpose. Okay, this is not to sell, but maybe to market. This sale deal is maybe not to make money, but to create a brand. So it's the balance, I think.
It is.
So safe to say, sorry, please.
No. I think you made a very good point, Yousef. I think you mentioned buyers, and that's very important to the business itself. I think to your point, yes, there are certain deals that you go I'll buy the bullet. This is important, so it's all right. But if I would want to leave here, I want to give one advice to Middle Eastern designers: set your budgets. This is your budget for this season with each department store or with each store. Do not go less than, if it's X amount of dollars, they have to purchase that, because that allows you to sustain the business as well. But to your point, I agree. There's certain brands that you want to work with and department stores you want to work with that you say I'd look at this as a collaboration. So I'm happy to take a cut out of this and not necessarily make the right amount of money out of it.
And Harrods actually started promoting Saudi designers. Hunaida Serafi had her first presentation at the Penthouse. So this is groundbreaking, and inshallah there'll be more coming up. And of course, Yousef is part of is stocked for mashallah for how long now? Have you been stocked with Harrods?
Possibly about a year.
Okay.
Amazing.
about a year. And speaking of Harrods, we are shipping our new collection tomorrow to them. Not the new collection, but the winter collection, which is a variation of my last collection, changing a few fabrications and colors, because we only do one collection a year. So they just get a color variation and some fabrication variation. But tomorrow, hopefully, inshallah, we're gonna ship it to them.
Amazing.
Well,
And,
Mabruk.
we're gonna get it running
Best of
for
luck.
Christmas, which is perfect time.
Okay, starting with the ladies. What is authenticity to you?
To be myself, just to show who I am as a fashion designer to the others. As you know, that I did it also with the interns, that I have the intern to do the internship. I'm really happy to welcome them all around the world to do it. And I just wanted to show who we are as the Saudi fashion designers. And I think this is the first step, just to show all the things that we have. This is the artistic for me.
I'm very proud of you all.
Thank you so
really.
much.
Rawan?
I believe like each one of us has a different story, and this story can change even within the situation.
Sure.
Yeah. Example, when we had the COVID, it changed our lives. The way I started to see my personal style and the way that I communicated actually fashion and different, ideas and concepts when we do that creative direction, for example, that year affected all of us, all our mindset, all our creativity. So I believe, yes, as Halaa mentioned, it's always to be yourself, tell your story, even if the story has changed or there's a certain situation that inspired that story. Just be authentic, be yourself, share your roots, share your heritage, share your culture. Especially for us Saudis, we're so proud to have this very rich, diversified culture that we can, until today, I'm learning about it. I'm from Saudi, I grew up in Saudi, but until today, I'm seeing a lot of things that I didn't know about. So it's good to always, stay connected to the roots and share more experiences and heritage and authenticity.
Absolutely. Yousef?
I'll have to agree with Halaa. It's being yourself, because that's the most authentic.
Sure.
Being yourself, doing what you believe in, and following your gut. I think this is probably one of the most important things in this fashion industry. There's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of people who throw advice at you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't take advice. Of course, do it, because there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, more than you do. But following your gut feeling and being yourself and staying true to yourself when times are tough and when there's doubts. I think that's really being authentic. Is trying to block out the noise and being who you really are.
Like that too. Sultan?
You know what? I agree with all of them. I think to me, authenticity is being Sultan, and being Sultan with an open mind of learning and evolving as a human being, and looking forward to who I will become in the future, and shutting down all the noise, to Rawan's point, and just being me. With no restrictions.
Well, thank you to our gems for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you for having
so
us.
much for coming so far. Really appreciate it. Thank you for coming, and thank you all. I hope we didn't disturb too much of your time. It was a pleasure having you all. I'm so proud of everyone, and honored to have you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
so
us.
much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Hatem.
Thank you.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks.